Well, welcome to the 700 Club and Merry Christmas to you. Today we're going to the Middle East where they really don't celebrate Christmas. The Muslim Brotherhood. Now that's an Islamic terror group. It's so dangerous that it's banned in Saudi Arabia, Syria, and Egypt. Well, this year in the U.S., Texas and Florida have designated the group a foreign terrorist organization.
In the coming days, the Trump administration is expected to do the same. Paul Petit explains the dangers the Muslim Brotherhood poses to America.
President Trump's executive order follows a lengthy report from the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy.
This is an organization that believes in murdering Jews, destroying Israel, and destroying the United States of America. This is their objective.
Institute Director Charles Asher Small stood alongside lawmakers and scholars, issuing a warning that the Brotherhood is halfway through a 100-year agenda to undermine and destroy democracy. Founded almost a century ago, the Muslim Brotherhood now operates across the Middle East. Hamas began as its Palestinian branch.
They've sponsored terrorism, murder, mayhem across the planet. They are a very negative and destructive force, and it is so important that the United States use its power and its influence to call them out for what they are.
The report points to how the Brotherhood's civilization jihad strategy infects academia by using the Muslim Students Association and Students for Justice in Palestine, the latter being a major force behind violent anti-Israel protests at Columbia University. The report claims these groups have been able to influence universities and government agencies. Dr. Small points to the election of Zohran Mamdani as New York City mayor as evidence.
He came out of SJP. He was a student activist for Students for Justice in Palestine at Bowdoin College, where he went to. And it's important for your listeners to understand that SJP comes out of AMP, American Muslims for Palestine, which is a Muslim Brotherhood-backed organization.
Trump's executive order states that Muslim Brotherhood chapters in Lebanon, Jordan, and Egypt threaten U.S. interests. Middle East analyst Dr. Mike Evans says he urged President Trump to also target Brotherhood-linked operations in Syria, Turkey, and Qatar.
Listen, the Muslim Brotherhood in Qatar, they funded and fueled terror. They fueled al-Qaeda, the Taliban, Iran, and Hamas. So these people hate us.
Decisions by Texas and Florida governors to put the terror label on both the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE are being fought in court.
One of the founders of the Texas branch of CARE was sent to prison for 65 years for financing terrorism. The fact of the matter is there are people associated with CARE who pose a serious danger.
Given Trump's order, Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent must submit a joint report before year's end. The Brotherhood is already banned as a terror organization in Saudi Arabia, UAE, Russia, Syria, and Jordan. But the report says they continue to operate in Qatar and Turkey, funding political and media influence worldwide.
Qatar is buying favor with BBC and the CNN and other media outlets, Al Jazeera, and it's now into our political system.
Evans says a move by U.S. could cut off that influence.
It's a game changer. When you designated a terrorist organization, they have no room to move anymore. They've been able to manipulate their way through the political system. They've been able to use money and influence and lobbies, etc. All of that will change once they're exposed to the light.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has praised Trump's initiative and indicates Israel could follow with its own designation. Israel Deputy Foreign Minister Sharon Haskell told Christian and Jewish leaders that Western civilization itself is at stake.
We've seen the movements of radical jihadist groups who say very clearly that what they seek is the destruction of Western civilization as we know it today, democracy, freedom, and to replace that with an Islamist tyranny, with a jihadist imperialism, to have an Islamic rule over the world.
Paul Petit, CBN News, Jerusalem.
That is their stated goal. They want Sharia law to be the law of every land on the planet. That has been their goal, and it's been their goal for centuries. Just look at the history of the invasions of Europe, the Battle of Tours, the Siege of Vienna, how Constantinople fell to the Ottomans. It's all designed to institute Sharia law. And famously, the Sultan rode horseback into the Hagia Sophia, the largest cathedral in the world, and announced Sharia law from that cathedral, that he was taking it over and turning it into a mosque. Now let's get a little history lesson. This is recent history. Let's go back to the Obama administration in 2009. During his campaign, he vowed he would make a major address in a Muslim capital, and so he did it, and it's called the Cairo Speech. The title of it is A New Beginning. He made it in 2009 in Cairo, in Egypt, a Muslim country capital. Now, before that speech, he made sure the Egyptian authorities gave place to the Muslim Brotherhood. He forced them to sit members of the Muslim Brotherhood in the audience, and not just anywhere. He gave them place and position on the front row. And he said, I'm trying to repair the damage the Bush administration did to Muslim countries. That was the whole purpose of that speech. Well, within a short time, the Muslim Brotherhood took over Egypt, and it took a military coup to get them out of power. In a short time, they moved into positions of authority in Turkey and in Qatar, and they spread their influence around the world. At the same time, the President Obama was doing that, his Director of National Security was telling Congress, testifying that the Muslim Brotherhood is not a terror group, but a social welfare organization. It was a complete reset, a complete redo. Now, to add to it, Obama is the reason Hamas was headquartered in Qatar. He asked the Qataris to take them in because the only other option in negotiations was to do it in Iran and Tehran, and Iran wasn't open. And so he asked Qatar to house the leadership of the Muslim Brotherhood and of Hamas. So you look at these facts and you go, where did we go so wrong in not understanding the very imminent danger of this kind of radical Muslim ideology? We're seeing it carried out around the world, and we need to wake up to it, that there are radical groups within Islam that think they're the true Muslims, and that anyone that doesn't join with ISIS, doesn't acknowledge the new caliphate, or isn't trying to wipe Israel off the map, that they're not true Muslims. And they need to have jihad, they need to have resistance. In the Bush administration, they tried to convince us that Islam means peace. Islam doesn't mean that, it means submission. And you have to jihad until the entire area, all the territory that you can control, comes under submission to Sharia law. That's their goal, and they've been saying it for centuries. It's about time we wake up to it. Europe woke up to it over 1,000 years ago and realized what the enemy at their border was and what they were trying to do. It's about time that we wake up to it. And whether it's these fundraising groups or distributing Muslim ideology, all of this, we have to recognize it for what it is. They do not believe in free speech. They do not believe in freedom of religion. They do not believe in freedom of assembly. They don't believe in all the things that made America great. Let's recognize it. Let's stand against it. In other news, Australian police carried out anti-terror raids in Sydney yesterday. Wendy Griffith has that story and more from our CBN newsroom. Wendy?
Gordon, authorities say they moved quickly to prevent another possible attack days after the Hanukkah massacre that left 15 people dead. Australian police arrested 7 men after receiving intelligence of potential violence.
Whilst the specific threat posed by the males is unknown, I can say that the potential of a violent offence being committed was such that we were not prepared to tolerate the risk and interdicted accordingly.
Australia's Prime Minister has declared December 21st a day to honour the victims of the Bondi Beach attack and show support for the Jewish community. Well, here at home, the suspect in the mass shooting at Brown University and the murder of an MIT professor has been found dead. The discovery ends a 6-day search after the shooting at Brown left 2 people dead Saturday. Police say 48-year-old Claudio Manuel Neves, a native of Portugal, shot himself in a New Hampshire storage unit. Surveillance video and a tip from a person on campus led to him as a suspect. He's a former grad student of Brown who left after a year in the physics program. Authorities say he's also suspected in the murder of MIT professor Nuno Lorio at his home near Boston Monday. The 2 men studied in the same program at a university in Portugal in the late 90s. Police have not yet released a motive in the shootings. In Washington, the Department of Health and Human Services is taking action to restrict gender transition medical procedures on minors. The proposals include ending Medicaid and Medicare funding to hospitals that perform such procedures.
To reinforce the need to protect our children, we are announcing that certified Medicare and Medicaid hospitals, pretty much everyone in the hospital in the country, will no longer be permitted to perform certain sex-rejecting procedures on children. Any hospital that does offer sex-rejecting procedures to vulnerable populations of pediatric-age kids will no longer be able to participate in the Medicare and Medicaid program.
In November, HHS released a report stating that using drugs or surgery to change a child's biological sex presents long-term dangers. The rules are not final and must go through a lengthy approval process. Well, President Trump is moving to reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug. He signed an executive order paving the way for the FDA to study its medical uses. The president calling it a common sense move, but there are concerns it could increase recreational use. CBN's Jenna Bratter reports.
The Trump administration is moving to reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug.
Today, I'm pleased to announce that I will be signing an executive order to reschedule marijuana from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 controlled substance with legitimate medical uses.
Prior to this executive order, marijuana was in the same class category as heroin, ecstasy, and LSD. Now it's in the same class of drugs like Tylenol and anabolic steroids.
We have people begging for me to do this, people that are in great pain.
Changing the classification eases regulatory hurdles to study marijuana's medical uses, potentially making it more available to people suffering from pain. President Trump stressing this is not about recreational use.
I want to emphasize that the order I am about to sign is not the legalization, or it doesn't legalize marijuana in any way, shape, or form, and in no way sanctions its use as a recreational drug. It has nothing to do with that.
Backlash to the order has been swift. A group of Republican House members sent a letter to President Trump urging him to reconsider. They say the move sends the wrong message to young people, enables drug cartels, and jeopardizes road safety. Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council, agrees, telling CBN News the move is troubling.
It seems to be that the administration has kind of an incoherent policy when it comes to drugs. I mean, we have a hot war on drugs where we have members of our military, our troops, are lighting up these drug traffickers. They're blowing up their boats in the Caribbean. But here we're telling kids it's okay to light up and smoke a joint.
Perkins believes this order is about more than just helping people in pain.
If you look at the executive order, it's not only about medical use and research, but if you look at it, it's also to allow banking institutions to be able to do transactions in marijuana. Bottom line, I think this is more about the economy and money than it is about the health and well-being of people.
Marijuana use among young people reached historic levels in recent years, daily use outpacing daily drinking, with nearly 18 million Americans reporting they used marijuana every day or nearly every day in 2022. That's up from less than 1 million 3 decades ago. And studies show a corresponding increase in cannabis use disorder.
Looking at our admission diagnoses here at the Center for Youth and Young Adults, so that's about 12, 13 to 25. And what we found was that people being admitted to our treatment center over the last 10 years, the number with a cannabis use disorder diagnosis increased 15%.
In terms of side effects, marijuana can cloud memory, deepen anxiety or depression, and trigger addiction. It's also thought to be especially dangerous for anyone with genetic risk factors to psychotic diseases like schizophrenia.
And at the signing, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. acknowledged many of these risks, but said to date most of the evidence has been anecdotal because up until now they haven't been able to do scientific research. Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Thanks, Jenna. Well, the president calls it a common sense move. What do you think, Gordon?
I don't think there's any common sense to it, just the sort of English slang. There's a reason we call it dope. You're putting yourself at risk. You're putting your entire future at risk. You probably don't need to have me tell you it leads to a complete lack of motivation in life. It definitely clouds your thinking and your memory. I do want to tell you what the Bible says, and it's an interesting lesson in translation. The original Greek word that is translated in the King James, New King James Version, most versions, English versions of the Bible, the word that we call sorcery, the original Greek was pharmakia, where we get the modern English word pharmacy. So the sorcerers of the Greek and Roman world used drugs to induce hallucinations, and that is how they, quote, got these great revelations. That is very clearly condemned in the New Testament. So we shouldn't be using drugs to escape and somehow find, some kind of high. It's a lie. It's a hallucination. It's not real. And New Testament letter after New Testament letter says to the early church, don't do this. So for Christians, please pay attention to what I'm saying. Don't use this. It will lead you away from God. It won't lead you into any kind of special revelation or anything like that. Be sober-minded is the command of the Scriptures. Don't be drunk with wine. Don't be high on the things the sorcerers use, but be filled with the Spirit, and that will be your true guide.